Oh, now what? Hey, thanks for dropping by. Can't Let Her Die DIY. You found this video, you found this channel. You must be having problems with your 4x4 not engaging. This here is a 2013 F150 3.5 liter EcoBoost. It's a great truck. We can't let this die. No way. We're hauling trailers, hauling dump trailers all the time, working this all the time. But right now it's not working at all. The 4x4 is not engaging. I don't have anything. Just two-wheel drive. And I'm getting this ratcheting sound from the front tire. You got that? This truck drives fine in two-wheel drive, but when I put it in four-wheel drive, I get this ratcheting sound from the front, this front tire right here, grinding, ratcheting, and it doesn't go into four-wheel drive. It's like it can't quite engage the four-wheel drive. Now, don't be so quick to think it may be a vacuum solenoid. It could be. Could be the check valve on the vacuum system as well. Could be the switch inside the dash. But in my situation, it's none of those things. What it is it's the IWE, the integrated wheel end, or the hub actuator, the four-wheel drive hub actuator. That's what's going on with this. And that may be what's going on with yours. Why don't you throw on your old clothes? I'll throw on my old clothes. We'll be back here in 5 minutes and we'll get in through that tire and see what's going on with the 4x4. Hey, take a look at this. We are getting grinding sounds. And if I go backwards, it's even louder, right? The CV axle is not turning because it's not engaged. It's just very close to being engaged. So my problem is it makes this sound when I put it in 4x4. When it's in two-wheel drive, the vacuum system's working really well. It pulls that actuator off of this and it does not make this clicking sound. But when it's parked and there's no vacuum, the spring is supposed to activate and you're supposed to get this put into 4x4. The other side works, this side doesn't turn the axle. So we can duplicate this, we can test it, right? If you see down here, here's the vacuum hose that comes up from the vacuum solenoid and the check valve comes down in here, it goes right into that IWE, integrated wheel end. So if we pull this off, like that, and we put a vacuum pump on there, we can give it vacuum on the big one. It's two-pronged, that's just the vent, and the bigger one, bigger prong is the vacuum line. So if we imitate a vacuum from the engine, say 20, like that, now it is pulling that actuator off of the so the vacuum system is working because it pulls it off and that's working properly. Now when I release the vacuum, I'll hit the release valve, there's no vacuum on there and it comes back. See? Because that's supposed to engage in 4x4 when there's no vacuum. And it doesn't quite do it. So what that is telling me is that the spring in the IWE, integrated wheel end, the spring is weak and it's not engaging. We have a weak spring, so what we need to do is change out that IWE. It's not losing vacuum in there because it can easily engage in two-wheel drive and stay there. I don't have the grinding, clicking sound in two-wheel drive. I have it only when I try to activate four-wheel drive, and it's only this wheel. So it's this right there's the culprit. That's the guy right there. A submission, if you decide to accept it, we're removing this guy and replacing him with a Ford approved IWE, integrated wheel end. Let's do it. You want to see the tools you'll need? Come take a look. Okay, this is the failed part. This is the new one. It's a Ford IWE integrated wheel end or hub, four-wheel drive hub actuator, and it comes with a bag of 3 bolts and a nut, so that's kind of nice. This is a vacuum pump. This is really good for testing. You don't really need it, but it's handy to have. This is your big friendly hammer. This is your breaker bar. Love that. And this is a torque wrench for torquing things down to spec. And I use 4 different ratcheting drives based on the length of the handles and that sort of thing. This is we need a 21 millimeter, a 13/16, 8, 10, 13 millimeter socket. I used a toothbrush. I used this to get rid of push pins, remove push pins. I used channel locks, a screwdriver for prying, a bungee cord, PB blaster, used all kinds of that. And this is a special grease I got from Ford as well. High temperature 4x4 front axle and wheel bearing grease. This is what they recommend for the grease to go inside that IWE. And that's it. That's all the tools you need. Not a lot. It's a lot of fun. So let's get at it. Okay, the first thing we have to do is remove this ABS sensor line. It goes all the way up here and underneath there. So we need to remove this so that we can free up some space and be able to manipulate this whole thing without that restricting us in any way. So first thing we're going to do is clean the crud off of these brackets that's holding that ABS sensor, anti-locking braking system. We're going to have to pop this push pin. Just pops out just like that. It's not broken, the Christmas tree type of push pin. Get in here, and then we'll be able to free up that sensor. That is right there, and that clip like that, and that should give us enough flexibility. Okay, with your 8 millimeter, let's take this off. The screw that's holding on the ABS sensor. And that comes off easily. There it is. With your wire cutters, give that zip tag a little snip like that. That should pull off that clamp like that. It just slides in there. The next one is right here. And that has a steel clamp that goes through and over here. So this is a push pin here. That whole bracket, that whole steel part is a push pin on this side. So a little squirt of PB blaster on that push pin, and we should be able to pry that off the bracket. Sort of like that. Right in there. There's the next one, and it is very similar to the last one. It's a push pin going into the steel frame. So we should be able to pry that off, get in there like that, and that pries off easily like that. Okay, let's give ourselves more room by removing the brake line here. Right here, right on that's a 10 millimeter. Like that. And that will give us even more flexibility with moving these parts out of the way. Okay, with your 21 millimeter or your 13/16 deep well socket, we're going to take off this tie rod end. I got it soaking in PB blaster. Should give us a little bit of help. And there. We'll get this off. Okay, with your big friendly hammer, we got to give it some strategic taps right here to break the rust bonds holding this tie rod on. And the rust is raining. There. It pops like that. Now I avoided pounding on this and I avoided pounding on that. I just pounded on this. And the vibrations is what does it. Alright, so you don't damage anything. Because that tie rod end is, yeah, that's in good shape. Let's get the caliper off. Caliper bracket bolts. Right, one there and one right here. 21 millimeter. Snap it on right there. And let's see what we got. Oh, you want to play? Okay. Okay, we got the breaker bar on here now. Oh, there goes my lozenger. Got a bit of a sore throat here. Oh my gosh. Oh boy, they were on there. 2.5 foot breaker bar. Barely did it. We got to hang this up with a caliber hanger. Now we should be able to get the rotor on. That comes off easily. That's nice for a change. And that's the hub. Channel locks are pretty good on this. I do dent it a little bit on the edge, but you can rock it and it won't come off. So that's holding the water out. Now we need to take off this axle nut right here, and it's solid, it's not loose. But what we need to do is take a mental note of where this axle is. When we put this all together, we need to know that that axle is sticking out 1 centimeter. Let's get our 13 millimeter on there. And there. Hold on to the axle. Doesn't turn. And that'll come right off. I got about 30 pounds of pressure on there, and now it's getting looser and looser and looser. Look at the rust down here. Do you guys get this much rust? We're in the snow belt here. That's just from pounding on that tie rod in. Anyway, moving right along. Next thing we need to do is remove the upper ball joint right here. We got to get that nut off and then pound that off. So first we're going to use your toothbrush and clean her up so that we can get PB Blaster in there. And this crud is not stopping the PB Blaster from working. Very good shot in there. And then the pounding will also help this PB Blaster to work its way down through the threads on that nut as well. Okay, let's tackle the spindle nut here. It's usually 21 millimeters or 13/16. And I use a deep well socket. And there we go. That's not too bad. PB Blaster got in there. That one fought me pretty much the whole way. There. Gotcha. Okay, now we'll just put it on just slightly because we're going to be pounding on that, and we don't want this whole thing to pop and things go flying. So now we need to hit it right here. 4 pops. That is pretty good. There. Aha. Now we got some flexibility, baby. See, we still have partial engagement here, and it should be full engaged. You can slide that axle shaft out like that. Okay, what we need to do now is get this IWE integrated wheel end off. It has 3 8mm bolts, one there, one here, and one down there. We need this off, put it on this side, and then that should give us enough clearance to get this axle shaft out of this hub. So let's do that. You got this. 8mm. Comes off easily. I think that's the first bolt that's has not been fighting me. Our luck's changing. That's good. Finger loose. That's one. The other one is right here, right by the vacuum plug. Vacuum lines. Two. And the third one is down here. Okay, that's the third 8mm bolt. This is a big moment, folks. We're going to get this off. It should come right off. It may need, since it's been 12 years, gentle persuasion. We're going to use the brass hammer. Brass is a softer metal. The dent and the damage goes on the hammer, not on the part. But we'll just give it a little tap. There it goes. See it separating? Separating right there, and that comes off like that. Yeah, it's not a new vehicle, and that's the way it happens when you live in the salt belt. On this side, marry that up like that. Push that axle shaft out, and a little bit of luck. Got it. Yeah. Woo, baby. And that right there is your IWE, integrated wheel end. Other people call it the hub actuator. And see, it has no spring. That's what I thought. It should be in the out position like that, and it's not. Without a vacuum, that should be pulled out like that. And mine is not. It's staying back here. That's what I wanted to see, because that was my diagnosis, that it's not engaging. Now we'll inspect for damage. But I didn't drive it in this condition, so once I knew there was something wrong with the 4x4, I put it up and didn't drive it, and figured it out and got this replaced. So we're going to replace this bad boy. Yeah, we got it. You got it. We can do this. Okay, here's the new hub actuator, or the IWE, integrated wheel end. And you can see it does have that spring action I was talking about. I let go and it engages in 4x4. Apply vacuum pressure and it sucks it back, and you're free spinning the wheel for two-wheel drive. This one doesn't even move. It's already compressed. I don't like it. It failed. 4x4. You know what that means? The old IWE hub actuator. I don't like it. It failed me. And I fired up the incinerator. If I don't appreciate, I incinerate. Stand back. Ooh, someone smoking in here? Now, with your partner's toothbrush, start cleaning up these gears. Get all that grease off there. We're going to replace it, put the new grease on, and inspect for any damage, wear and tear. Get that nice and pretty. Okay, Ford tells me this is the grease that you want to use. It's high temperature 4x4 front axle and wheel bearing grease. Specially designed grease by Ford Motorcraft. And the part comes greased. So maybe some people would be tempted not to put additional grease on here, but I'm going to do it. Right? One of the reasons why it may stop working is because the grease is not good. But I think in my situation, it just wore out over time. I do apply the 4x4 a lot. I live up a little hill. My driveway is a little bit steep. So in the winter time, I snap it into 4x4 to get up the driveway quite often. And then I snap it out of 4-wheel into 2-wheel drive when I get to the top of the driveway. probably use 4x4 a lot more than most people do in the summer. I'm hauling things and I often have to put it in 4x4. Now the new IWE goes on with the vacuum hoses at the top. So we can put it on over here, like that. And then we can get our shaft inside, like that. That was easy. And now I want to put this up and get those splines to match up. Goes sort of like that. Okay, so I got the IWE right in there where the bolts go, right there, and I pull this way towards the hub, and it sits flat right there, and I get engagement of the hub with this, with the gears on this, the IWE. And now when I put it up into the shaft fully in there like that, now I get engagement of the four-wheel drive because I cannot turn it. Yep, there. Right, it's turned the whole shaft, so I know it's married up properly right there. The other indicator right here, the axle shaft is sticking out that 1 centimeter, which is a proper fit. So we got that. So I think what I'll do now is attach the bolts to that. So we'll compress the spring of this IWE there and start turning that. Get it started with the fingers. Okay. Let's get a little bite on it. We'll get them all three started and then we'll tighten them up in a crisscross pattern to pull that IWE straight into the hub. Just like when you put on your tires in a crisscross pattern, your lug nuts, so that you get a straight, proper fit. Now with our 8mm, go with the left hand so you get a better shot of it. I'm going to come over on the far side and snug up that one. Snug this one down. Now we're going to test it like this. Yes, that's good. It's all married on there. The teeth fit in there nice. The teeth on the axle fit into the teeth on the hub actuator, just like your dentist. The upper teeth fit nicely into the lower teeth. We got an excellent contact there. So now I will tighten those up. And we'll tighten them up as tight as they were when we took them off. Crisscross pattern over to the other side. And the last one. There, nice. Beautiful. Beautiful. Now we'll go with that center nut, the axle nut. Right here, that is out a good centimeter. And it looks like it has Loctite on this. Okay, so we have this all engaged properly. That is well sticking out a centimeter like we found it. So we are good. That is in good alignment. We can now screw this in. And that is, if you remember, that is your 13mm. And we tighten this up. Wow, it is all married up there. So we'll torque that down to specs a little later. Next, I want to get this upper ball joint on and the tie rod in on down here. Okay, now it's a good time to get the upper ball joint on there. So we line that up, and we got our pry bar. In this case, it is the breaker bar. pry down a little more than that. There we go. And pry down like that. Once you get it lined up. And there. Hold that for a bit. And with our 13/16 or your 21 millimeter, we tighten this right back up the way we found it. Okay, now that we have this installed, the IWE installed, we're going to test it before we put everything back together and find out it doesn't work. But we want to test it, make sure it's working properly. So here is the vent tube right here. And remember, it has the small hole. That's just the vent hole. And then the bigger hole, that's where the vacuum comes down and activates the actuator, the IWE. So we're going to imitate the big one. We're going to put our own vacuum on there. So we're going to put the small one on there. And that'll also tell us if that's clogged, that vent is clogged or not. Like that. Now we'll pump this up to 20 inches per HG of vacuum. That's what it should be at. That's 15. Get to 20. And at 20, this should be free spinning. Beautiful. Just like that, both ways, right? Two-wheel drive. And then when you hit the switch in the cab and turn it into four-wheel drive, you cut the vacuum and it engages in four-wheel drive. And that's how it's supposed to work. No ticking, no nothing. So we got that installed properly. Yeah, beautiful. Now we throw it all back together and take it out in the snow. Have some fun. You got this. You do. Okay, now the torque specs on this upper ball joint is 46. So that's what I got it set on. And okay. Now we'll tighten down our axle nut, 13 millimeter socket. We'll torque it down to 30 foot-pounds. So that's 30, which is not much. Okay, she's tightening up now. There's 30. Exactly the way we found it. Perfect. Beautiful. We love it. Okay, we'll slide the rotor back on. The rotor's looking good. You can see our brake pad's good there. And we got brake pad, good brake pad there. So the brake pads are good. There we go. Make sure our lines are in the proper places. Okay, so the big boys get torqued down to 180 foot-pounds of torque. Now, the problem with that is my wrench only goes up to 150 foot-pounds. So, we go to 150. There's 150. Now we got to go to 80, which is about right there. So pretty much, if you have a 2-foot wrench, it's pretty much as tight as you can get it. There's 150. And then about 5 degrees after that, because it bottoms right out. All right, tie rod in. Bada bing, bada boom. Okay, next we're going after Mr. Tie Rod in, right here. Install him back in there, sort of like that. And we need to tighten this down to 80 foot-pounds. That's what Ford would like us to do on that. Right there, baby. Right there. Okay, we got all our big boys torqued down to spec, all the big bolts. And not just torqued down, now we got to do the ABS line and the brake line. We got to put those back into their little holders. I'll do that next. And 10 millimeter, we'll tighten that bracket up. ABS cable, we did a good job of keeping this out of harm's way. These are very fragile. You don't want to start freaking it. You don't want to pinch them in any way. Wait, about the same as what you found it. That goes in there. And we'll get a zip tie to tie around there. Push pins, they just push into place. Remember how I took those off? and they're still lubricated up, so they should just push right in there like that. There, make sure you're pushing on the steel part and not on the cable itself, so you don't bend that ABS line in any way. Now that goes in there, this goes in there, and that concludes that. Now we got a push pin to go right there. The cap's in good shape. That just goes on like that. Nice and secure. Oh, it's looking good. 4x4 is activated, as it should be, because there's no vacuum on it. Excellent. That's it. Push pin. We need a push pin right there. That was the first thing we took off. Last thing we put back on. Just like that. And that's it. Now while I'm here, I will undercoat all in here. But you don't need to see that. I always do it every time I'm in here. Get the tire off. Give a little undercoating. Keeps things from rusting. Get the undercoating in the frame. Put a whole bunch in there and let it live inside the frame. Prevent my frame from rusting from the inside. We're good to go. Yeah. That's it, guys. I hope you enjoyed the video, and I hope you were able to get your IWE installed properly like I have, and hopefully you learned a trick or two. Guess what? The best part now is we get to go out in the snow and test the four-wheel drive. No one has more fun than I do. See you in the next video. You got